Welcome back to the Justice Factor. The NPA is no stranger to controversy, and virtually all its chiefs since the late 1990s have left under a cloud of allegations and backstabbing. Now it has emerged that its new head, Nkosi was refused security clearance for not disclosing that at age 18 he killed a man. Ngasana was acquitted of the murder. He could be suspended if his current and former bosses have their way. What happens now, and how does this affect you and me? My guests to discuss this are Lawson Naidoo, Executive Director of the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, and eNCA Senior Reporter Karyn Maughan. Karyn, welcome to the show. I have to say, I read these stories and I look at them and I think, how does it happen that he got the job in the first place, and only months later we hear about this, that he doesn't have a clearance and so forth? Surely there's something wrong with the way he was selected and put in the job.
The whole thing is extremely strange, because any criminal investigative journalist will tell you that if you have someone's ID number, you can take it through the police record center and in less than half an hour know their entire sort of so-called criminal history. Cases where they've been a complainant, where they've been an accused, even when the case hasn't gone anywhere, the result, the time, everything. You know, so I find it quite odd that this information is only coming out now. I suspect that it has been available for quite some time, and this may be a case of it being utilized for a particular end. Did the NDPP perhaps provide potentially political enemies with a rope to hang himself? Yes. But was this something that the authorities didn't know about from the very onset? I very much doubt it. So
what I can take from what you're saying is that the state of the NPA is really a viper's nest.
Well, that much is apparent. When I, in fact, interviewed the Justice Minister just a few days ago about this very issue, he alluded to the fact that there were, quote unquote, interpersonal problems within the office of the NPA. And we know from the kind of information that was coming out, particularly in the Mail and Guardian story, very excellent comprehensive story that they broke on Friday about this matter, that there was a huge amount of very specific detail that could have only come from that office. And we see with Nkosana's reaction himself, saying that there are people who are spreading rumors and speculation about him, and he knows this, that he very much suspects those within the organization of being behind this for whatever reason.
Let me go to Lawson Naidoo in Cape Town. Tell me here, what we have is a situation where really this institution seems to be totally compromised. What does that mean for you and me and Karyn and the men and women in the street?
Well, Justice, I think it's clear that the NPA has been in some political turmoil for some years now. And as the organization that is at the center of the criminal justice system in South Africa, we need to ensure that that institution has integrity and is led by people with integrity. The President is empowered to appoint the head of the NPA, and in doing so, he must appoint someone who is a fit and proper person. And we know from the Constitutional Court judgment in the Simelane case that he must take into account not just subjective factors of what he thinks of the candidate, or what somebody who's recommended him may think of that person, but he also needs to look at the objective factors. So there's a responsibility on the President to collate as much information as he could. And as Karyn has pointed out, it would have been very easy to get information regarding his criminal past, even when he was acquitted on issues. And I think the important point to note here is that despite the fact that he may have been acquitted, this is the head of the National Prosecuting Authority who exercises constitutional power on your behalf and on mine in prosecuting all crimes in South Africa. So that person really has to be beyond reproach.
Whose fault is it, Lawson Naidoo? Is it the Justice Minister? Is it the President? How far does it go? And I refer here to the allegations that President Jacob Zuma's legal counsel, Mr. Hali, may have had a hand in the appointment of the current NPA head.
Well, Justice, the buck must stop with the President. The President is authorized under the Constitution to make the appointment. So whether he takes advice from the Minister of Justice, other members of Cabinet, or or other advisors is immaterial. The president makes the decision. It is his assessment of fitness and propriety that is important, and he needs to satisfy himself that the person appointed is fit and proper. In this case, it would appear that the assessment of Mr. Nkosana was not a comprehensive one.
Karyn, Maughan, it just sounds, I hear the story and I look back at Mokotedi Mpshe, Menzi Similane, Vusi Pikoli. This job seems to be a major point of conflict. What is it about it? What's happening here? Why is it such as if everyone wants to have a hand in the appointment and the running of the NPA?
Well, I think Lawson raises a very important point. I mean, coming off the back of the Similane debacle, which was a massive embarrassment, where you have the Constitutional Court ultimately finding that the appointment of this man was a decision that was made irrationally, you would have thought there would have been a bit more circumspection and thought and effort made into the appointment of the next NDPP. The unfortunate reality is that the NPA has been in existence for 16 years, and for more than half of that time period, we've had it led by acting NPA heads. Probably the most strident and independent of those who suffered the greatest fall in many respects was Vusi Pikoli. And I've spoken to a number of quite senior respected advocates about possibly whether they would ever consider taking this job, and no one will. What is it about the environment that's being created around this organization where the message is put out that this is something that this is an organization, this is an entity that will prosecute without fear or favor, but everyone that heads up that organization leaves under some kind of cloud, compromised in some way, except for potentially those who are acting in the capacity, like Mokotedi Mpshe and Advocate Jiba.
Karyn, you've done a lot of work. You report on the Oscar Pistorius case and so forth. What does all this stuff mean for Karyn, for example, for all these prosecutors, you know, working away in the courts, trying to do their best, trying to get the bad guys out of society? Well, does it affect them at all?
I'm very glad that you asked this question, because I think in the midst of all the political furore and, you know, the scandal mongering and various other things, we forget at the heart of this that we have a number of people working in an organization that is fundamentally under-resourced. We know that Nkosana himself went to Parliament saying that he needed 800 million rand to keep the NPA functional. He's getting 27 million. I mean, it's insane. These people are working under the most difficult conditions with the difficult cases. You know, the levels of sexual violence that we have and other violence that we have in this country are insane. They often act as social workers, psychotherapists, and they really are oftentimes trying to buffer the justice system against the many problems with the forensic issues, et cetera, from the police. And ultimately, you know, how can they function in an environment where there is constantly some form of leadership vacuum? It is untenable.
Let me bring Lawson Naidoo. How do we fix this? Can we fix it? What's the next step?
Well, I think once we've dealt with this issue, and I'm pleased to note that the Minister of Justice is dealing with the matter, has publicly said that he's collating the facts surrounding the appointment of Mr. Nkosana and will discuss these issues with the President. So we must let that take its course. But I think in the longer term, we need to revisit the process by which the National Director of Public Prosecutions is appointed. This is an independent institution within our constitutional framework. Yes, it may not reside within Chapter 9 of the Constitution, but the appointment of the head should be similar to that of the head of Chapter 9 institutions, which is a process that involves Parliament, shortlisting candidates, and that will provide some level of transparency and scrutiny of the process so that we know a little bit more about the people that are being appointed to these positions. At the time that Mr. Nkosana was appointed in August of last year, as a result of a Constitutional Court application that was brought by CASAC, we said to the President, please, Mr. President, take the nation into your confidence and give us the reasons why you have appointed him. What are the specific skills, characteristics, and attributes that he has that will help to rebuild the stature of the NPA? And as Karyn has said, to restore the morale of ordinary prosecutors who are
Lawson
working
Naidoo, thanks
under
so
very
much.
difficult conditions.
That's where we have to leave it. But thank you very much for your contribution. Karyn, Maughan, thanks so much for your contribution. It's been very educational. After the break, our winner and loser of the week. Stay with us.
News that moves. eNCA.com.